It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. My guest today is Seth Schorr, CEO of Fifth Street Gaming and chairman of Downtown Grand Hotel and Casino. Since beginning his career in gaming and hospitality in 1991, Seth served as an integral member of the Wynn Resorts team, developing the international marketing department in Macau, their interactive gaming division, and the Wynn collection of fine art. Seth and his partner Jeffrey Fine co-founded Fifth Street Gaming, which owns and operates 5 casinos. In early 2015, he was introduced to the world of esports and led the effort of developing the first fully integrated esports program at the Downtown Grand. He is a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania, a member of YPO, and sits on numerous boards of directors. Seth is also an avid cyclist, amateur photographer, has 2 children, and recently married Dr. Emily Schorr. Seth Schorr, welcome into the corner office.
Thank you for having me, Brant. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. I know we talked a few weeks ago, and I'm so excited. You're our first gaming industry executive we brought onto the show, and kind of opening us up into a whole new industry. I've worked a little bit that in recruiting, but we actually haven't had someone. And you've been in the industry a long time, and I'm really interested to hear about your journey into the corner office. But we always like to start, with the early years. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your early family life was like, Seth.
Sure. So I was born in New York City. And moved to Atlantic City, New Jersey, I believe when I was about 6 years old. So that was my first experience being in a gambling market.
Right.
My father at the time was working with Steve Wynn, and we as a family moved to Las Vegas in 1983. I actually lived in the Golden Nugget in downtown Las Vegas.
No kidding.
Wow. Some people say I was the male Eloise. The school bus actually picked me up under the porte cochere at the casino. And in all seriousness, I really did get very comfortable and familiar with the casino resort environment at a very young age. And I think the seed was planted at the time for my career.
Well, that's really growing up in the industry, isn't it, Seth?
I think it literally is. Yes. I actually give people who grew up in Las Vegas a bad name. People, when you say you're from Las Vegas, people ask, well, what did you grow up in a casino? Of course, which most people roll their eyes and they're like, that's ridiculous. But I actually did. So,
you did. I love it. And is Dad still working today?
My father is not. So he retired about 5 years ago. He was chief operating officer of Wynn Resorts, overseeing the operations in Las Vegas and Macau, China. And now he is a professional grandfather to my 2 kids and my sister's little girl as well.
Wonderful. Well, I remember my very first experience in Wynn Resorts, and I'm sorry I can't remember the name of it, but the Japanese restaurant on the down floor, on the first floor. Oh, one of the best evening experiences I've ever had.
It was great food and a great atmosphere overlooking a waterfall, and really learning how Mr. Wynn and my father created guest experiences, taking development and detail to a level that I just don't think any other developer in the world really has met the expectation they have set for their guests. And
It's so true. I spent a number of years with Disney in my career, and the last 4 or 5 were on the theme park side. And, I think Walt always had an eye for that as well, really treating that guest experience. And, it makes it super special. But, as I said, I'll always remember that as one of the best sushi meals I think I've ever had. And I think we've been back once or twice, but the first time is always so special. So did mom work in the industry as well, or was she focusing on bringing you up?
No, she was focused on raising me and my sister.
Okay.
So played an important role in supporting my father, of course, and
sure.
really being the anchor of our family.
Younger sister, older sister?
Younger sister. She lives in Aspen, Colorado today. Her husband, Michael Brown, is actually in the hotel business as well.
He's developed, didn't go too far away from it.
No. He's a fantastic hotel developer and operator with properties in Aspen and Sun Valley, Idaho.
That's awesome. So tell me about some of the things that, maybe inspired you as a kid as you watched mom and dad and grew up in a fairly unique environment.
I think it all came very naturally. When I was probably 7 years old, living at the Golden Nugget, I really immediately noticed that there were not enough children around that environment. And right, I suggested to my father that I become director of children's marketing. And I had all sorts of ideas as to how you can make the children happier. And if you got children to want to stay in your hotel, of course, they have to come with their parents. So that was a great way of acquiring new guests.
Well, don't tell me that was a precursor for Circus, because I remember my my first time as a kid was going there.
Right. So Circus was around, but this was about 7 years before the big family trend, seeing hotel and resorts like Treasure Island and others that clearly were focused on the family experience.
Well, that's really what Las Vegas is now. I mean, it clearly is so much of a family resort. There's so much to do there.
I think Las Vegas, what it isn't is a one-trick pony focused on gambling only. And that change really started to occur in a meaningful way in 1998 with the opening of Bellagio. And that was the first time that massive integrated resorts were seeing more revenue from the non-gaming space than from the casino. The casino obviously is still a critical part of our revenue stream and guest experience, but really creating a holistic experience for all different types of guests has been what our city has done in an amazing way. Quite frankly, better than casino resorts in any city around the world. The convention business is critical to Las Vegas. The family tourists, and of course the gambler. But Las Vegas is truly a place for everybody to both visit and now live as well.
Absolutely. Terrific. Who were some of the other early inspirations? Were there, teachers or folks that, maybe you knew living there in the Golden Nugget and elsewhere that, kind of touched you at an early age and inspired you actually to pursue the career you had, other than Dad, of course?
Seeing Dad and Steve Wynn really changed the face of Las Vegas from the 80s till the 2000s. Really was my focus and inspiration. But as I got older, of course, I was able to meet other great business leaders in this city, have formed a great relationship over the past 15 years with our great mayor, Carolyn Goodman, who actually founded the school my sister and I went to 30 years ago. Our former Governor Sandoval, and I have a great relationship. And I've really respected how Las Vegas and Nevada has a private-public partnership unlike any other city that I know of. I'm not saying that type of relationship is exclusive to Nevada. And of course, other cities and states that have important industry does form a relationship with local government. But I truly don't think it does in the way that Nevada has. And it's the support of our city, county, and state government that has really helped us build an industry that's quite different than any other casino business in other jurisdictions around the world.
That's awesome. Were you a good student in school? I mean, you must have been going with local kids there, right? Or were there other stops along the bus route going down the strip?
Of course. So I went to a school called the Meadow School, where my two children actually go today. It is, what I believe is the best school in Clark County. Had a great education, really grateful for that opportunity. and then went to a boarding school in Carpinteria, California, outside of Santa Barbara.
Right. Yeah, down in my neck of the woods.
Yeah, Kate School. And that was, quite frankly, the best experience in those very formidable years, being introduced to international students. So, living with people, experiencing different cultures, an incredibly small class size. I think I even created a few classes in high school on subjects that I wanted to learn more about. And then I had an opportunity to go to the University of Pennsylvania.
Ah, fantastic. Well, what about back to those Kate years? Were you involved in sports, music, theater, other things that you pursued outside?
All of the above. I was a lacrosse player, a long stick midi. Played a few other sports, but lacrosse was definitely my favorite. Played the bass guitar, which I actually picked up in 2019 for the first time in 25 years. Wow. And I was very active in theater, which I do think has actually helped me in my public appearances today, and generally being comfortable in front of a big audience.
That's so common. We've seen that a lot with a lot of our guests that either debate, right, which is also not only a good speaking skills, but a thinking skill. But drama is just such a wonderful way in which to, get you comfortable speaking to strangers and really hone your presentation skills.
It's interesting you say that because I'm certain that that's true, and certain that debate has helped many people, and especially those that enter the political landscape. I never did debate. And I'm actually glad for my own style that my early training was really in entertaining people, keeping them engaged, even making them laugh. And I have found that, that tactic has really helped in terms of getting people to maybe pay attention to what I have to say instead of looking at it as winning an argument, really just getting someone to, build a bond in a relationship and really enjoy what I'm saying. And they tend to listen to it a little bit more.
Sure. Well, you've had quite an entrepreneurial career, and we'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But early on, did that entrepreneurialism play out? Were there things that you did as a kid, raising money, or maybe projects that you were involved with that you could kind of draw back to your entrepreneurial beginnings?
Sure. So as many kids in high school and college, I certainly had little side businesses, but thank God my business early education was one where I saw how a traditional, large, functional organization was developed and managed. And that's something today that I lean into quite a bit, especially in this age where we have so many great entrepreneurs. I think ever since, the introduction of, the tech entrepreneur, over the last 20 years, it's been very good in some senses, but I've also seen an entire generation of business people that truly don't understand how a large functional organization works, don't really understand management, the pitfalls. Now, mind you, not having any experience with those pitfalls oftentimes gives them the courage and ability to take huge leaps of faith because they don't really know the downside. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I just am very appreciative that my foundation was really in running a traditional organization. And it's more recently that I've built a technology company, which may be more of the path of the tech entrepreneur.
Yeah. That's awesome. I know that Kate, which is a terrific school, by the way, I know it quite well, kept you pretty busy during the school year. But were there summer jobs? Did you come back to Las Vegas and, work in the casinos? Tell us about some of those.
Yeah, definitely. My first summer job, I was, I think, 12. I was working in Laughlin, Nevada, the Golden Nugget in Laughlin. Yeah. I think that first year was a lot of manual labor, painting a garage in 125-degree heat.
Oh my gosh.
I also had my first analytical job at that time as well. The Golden Nugget Laughlin sits on the Laughlin River, which divides Bullhead City, Arizona, and Laughlin, Nevada. And at the time, in the early 90s, there were water taxis that brought guests from Arizona to Nevada. And of course, that was an expense. So the expense had to be justified. So for a few weeks, I sat outside with a little counter and clicked away to count the number of people that took the water taxi to then give the operators the data they need to see if it was worthwhile to maintain that expense.
Early data analytics by the clicker.
By the clicker. And you know what? But really just good old fashioned.
Helpful. Yeah.
Helpful and showed me how business decisions were made, not just off the cuff, but really collecting the data.
Yeah. Great experience. So you went to Penn. I'm also a Wharton grad. Love that community. Wonderful, location. What made you decide to kind of pick up? I mean, I know that your roots were in the East Coast of New Jersey, but you spent a considerable number of years in California. What led you to go to University of Pennsylvania?
I was visited many colleges as people do when trying to make that very important decision. There was something about Penn and Philadelphia that really attracted me. I think it was the history of the university. The city itself I found to be exciting yet manageable. A great college campus, really integrated with the city. Everything about it just spoke to me, and I'm so glad I went there. Penn has the relationships that I formed at Penn have been incredibly important to me, both personally and professionally, ever since.
Yeah. And you chose to study Asian studies, I believe. What led you down that road?
I did. So I had my first trip to Asia when I was 13 or 14 years old. My grandparents took me on an Asian tour. I fell in love with the culture. And in high school at Cate, I actually studied Japanese for about 3 years and Chinese my senior year. So Penn, it was really an extension of that love of Chinese culture. In the future, it certainly helped in the casino business, as there is certainly a large segment of Asian customers. But I don't think that was my reasoning at the time.
Yeah, fantastic. And have you kept those ties to Asia since your studies there in terms of work and or pleasure?
I have. So I both in high school and college had the opportunity to live with families in Japan and China to study at Beida University in Beijing. And I worked in Macau, China from 2001 to 2003, which was a great experience. Spent a lot of time in Hong Kong. Big gaming
community there.
Yeah, great community. And ever since then, I don't think, every year or two, I have a reason to go back to Asia. I went to Asia on my honeymoon a few years ago and really love it.
What was the first job you took out of college, Seth, after graduating from Penn?
So also an extension of, you'd asked about the summer jobs, for basically 7 or 8 summers, I worked in every area of the casino business, from human resources to front desk. And I was a casino host. So when I graduated Penn.
Was that within the Wynn Resorts or did you bounce around a little bit?
Yeah, so this predated Wynn Resorts. It was all in Mirage Resorts, which was Steve Wynn's former company.
Where Steve was, yeah.
Right, correct. So I had an opportunity to work at Treasure Island, the Mirage, and even Bellagio. Fantastic. When I left university, I went back to Las Vegas, worked for Bobby Baldwin at Bellagio. And I was there for a little over a year when Mr. Wynn sold Mirage Resorts to MGM. And at that time, I had an opportunity to explore areas of the casino business that even today I'm very excited about. And that's really the innovative, up-and-coming areas of the casino business. So at that time, online gaming was new to the world. This was 2000, and you saw a few early online casinos pop up in Canada. And I was going to go actually work for Terry Lanny, rest in peace, who at the time was chairman of MGM Mirage. And I told Mr. Wynn that I was doing that. And he asked me, well, why aren't we doing that together? So he funded a company that I operated and went and explored the world of online gaming for just shy of 2 years, until, of course, we came to the conclusion that it was illegal at the time. So we had to abandon that project. But that was my very first taste of leading a company and really pathfinding in a uncharted territory.
Yeah, awesome. Did you have leadership responsibilities early on in those days? People on the team and
I did, less so with the online gaming operation, as that really was just myself and a team of resources. But at that same time, I also had the opportunity to build the Wynn collection. So when Mr. Wynn sold sold Mirage Resorts, he took with him about a dozen of the world's best, most historically important and valuable impressionist paintings. And he truly believes in sharing that artwork with the world and our Las Vegas community, which still does not have any fine art museum. So I got the opportunity to actually build a gallery, literally oversee construction, lighting, security, humidity control, built the programs, the docent programs for school children, the gift shop. I learned how to create the level of art merchandise that one would expect, museum quality. And at that time, it was a small team, probably a dozen people, but that was my first leadership opportunity. Yeah. And it was a great one. It felt very important. It wasn't just about generating revenue, but really about giving back to our community.
Yeah. What were some of those early challenges when you first started managing people, Seth?
I think early on, well, I always had a level of confidence. At that time, I was young. I was in my very early 20s, managing people, 2 or 3 times my age. I think I learned how to be a respectful leader, and it really helped that even in my early 20s, I had 10 years of at least part-time experience working throughout the property. So, while that necessarily wasn't full-time experience, as I, was able, I always felt it was important to have been in the shoes of the people that I'm now expecting to follow my lead.
Yeah. Yeah. Both from an empathetic standpoint and also knowing the job they did, I imagine.
That's correct.
And, you've obviously had an exposure to Mr. Wynn over the years, through Dad. And of course, I would be sure, obviously, meetings and so forth with him. If you looking back at some of those early years, what were some of the impressions that you had from him? What were some of the lessons that you'd take away?
So many. I mean, even as a high school kid, it was Mr. Wynn who strongly suggested I don't study business at university, but rather he was a literature major. So whether it was literature or history, he told me I'd have plenty of time to learn business on the job, or of course go to business school, graduate school. But you only have a very small opportunity to really broaden your horizon when it comes to history and literature. So that was great advice. Yeah. When it came to business, I think there are a couple different things I remember. And first and foremost, just seeing a man so dedicated and so hardworking. And he would work 6.5 days a week. And he demanded a lot from his team. But when you see a man with such great success do it himself, it's hard not to be inspired to be so dedicated. There were also, I had a lot, the things that I was doing for him ingrained the importance of paying attention to detail. So, for example, building that gallery, I felt like I was the custodian of his children, right? These were paintings that were so important to him. Yeah. So the detail when it came to lighting and things that most people just wouldn't pay attention to, or would get to a point where it just felt like it was good enough, I knew that wasn't the Wynn way. I'll also never forget at this time, because the Wynn collection was the only operating business in what was to become Wynn Resorts. It was the gallery was in the former Desert Inn hotel, which was shut down at the time. Yeah, I also had other random things under my purview, including having to pick the on-hold music and something like that. On-hold music. Most people would just have a DMX channel or some playlist. Or hire someone to do it. Mr. Wynn and I sat down and picked only a handful of songs that were allowed. And when he called in, not that he was put on hold very often. Yeah, I can imagine. But if the music level wasn't perfect, he would call me and let's just say in a very serious tone, remind me how important every detail of the guest experiences, and I appreciate it. I never,
so true.
When
so
Mr.
true.
Wynn, he has a very unique leadership quality that I don't think many people could emulate, because he did lead in a very strong way, but also when he gave you a pat on the back, there was certainly nothing like that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I want to talk a little bit about your journey to CEO, because you're really running two operations. You're the CEO of Fifth Street Gaming, as well as the chairman of Downtown Grand Hotel and Casino. Tell us a little bit about your path to those organizations, and then, give us a little thumbnail sketch of each of them.
Yeah, sure. Some days I wish it was only those two, but we will start with those two. So about 15 years ago or so, I founded Fifth Street Gaming with my partner, Jeffrey Fine. We started a management company that both owns and operates certain casinos, and we manage casinos on behalf of real estate owners and private equity firms. We felt that there was an opportunity in the market for a company like ours to really create unique guest experiences, focus on niche markets. So two of our properties in North Las Vegas, one of them is called the Silver Nugget, and we're actually in the process of redeveloping that property and creating Southern Nevada's first Mexican entertainment district. We currently produce massive rodeos and outdoor events and major concerts, and we really feel like that is an important part of the market, and it's a very underserved segment in our community. The Downtown Grand was a great opportunity that was presented to us in 2010, 2011 by CIM Group. That is a major private equity fund based out of Los Angeles and New York. And we had an amazing opportunity to work alongside them to develop the property, to create the restaurants and the design and the casino experience. And we've been operating it ever since. We're actually in the process of building 500 new hotel rooms, which we're incredibly excited about. The Downtown Grand is a very unique property in that it is fully integrated with the downtown city of Las Vegas. And, while
now, is that Fremont Street? I don't know if I've got my geography right.
You're correct. Yes, it's about, we're one block off of Fremont Street.
One block off.
Which is a great thing. We're a block away from the epicenter of downtown, but we also have our own unique neighborhood that we have, full control over. And it's, we have great restaurants and have created an authentic pedestrian district, much like you would see on Beale Street or in the Gas Lamp District in San Diego, and obviously many areas in New York City.
Yeah, cool. Excellent. And how many employees today in total with the two or three organizations that you currently run?
Well over 1,000 employees, mostly in our hospitality business, restaurants, casinos, hotel. And then I have a couple early stage businesses as well. One of them is called Dunbar, which is an unclaimed property business. So we provide financial services to major banks and brokerage firms, and essentially provide a service around unclaimed property where we help these institutions stay in compliance and locate their lost account holders. So many people don't know, but there's tens of billions of dollars that gets abandoned to the various states every year. And we help mitigate that by working with banks to locate their lost account holders before they're complied to abandon the property to the state.
Interesting. Cool. Wow. So lots going on in your world, Seth. I recently heard it's sometimes, though, can be a little uncomfortable having your answers questioned rather than your questions answered as a CEO. Have you been in that situation? And if so, how do you handle that?
I often see my role as one of staying far enough away from the weeds where I maintain an objective and clear position of a company that I'm obviously very intimately familiar with. And therefore, the questions that I ask, I really see as the basis of facilitating a conversation. and trying to explore areas that I have questions or concerns, right? Most of which I always start off as making observations. And, sometimes the observations lead to having to change a policy, procedure, or some sort of business course correction. Or sometimes my observations are answered with the information that I didn't have and were not issues that I may have thought them to be.
Yeah, cool. Would you say your leadership's evolved? Your leadership styles evolved over time, Seth? And if so, how?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I've had a few mentors, and I don't know, not that long ago, probably 6 or 7 years ago. So at the time, I was probably in my mid 30s. I was incredibly passionate, but I often led in a way that was disruptive to the organization, obviously unintentionally. So what I mean by that is sometimes I forgot when you wear the CEO or chairman hat, you have to be careful. I have to be careful in what I say and where I say it. And, I just had to learn over time how to really, manage differently. And I never wanted to disrupt people's lives. I made mistakes by having people move to Las Vegas. And really, they ended up not being right for the position. And, that was a terrible experience seeing, an individual move with his family and
uprooting themselves.
And so my hiring and recruitment practices are different. I was definitely guilty of, emailing people over the weekend, which I think is a terrible habit if it's not, mission critical or literally a fire, which I've had literal fires. But when it's not necessary, life balance is so important and something that I've personally struggled with and I'm now much better at. So I really respect the life balance of my team members, and I've come up with other ways of getting my thoughts down but not disrupting people at times that are unnecessary.
Yeah. It's been said that the CEO truly drives the culture of an organization, and particularly when you founded one, which is your case. What would you say is kind of unusual or unique about the cultures in which you currently run and operate here?
Each one is different. So I do have 6 or 7 different businesses. It's not one management or holding company with different business verticals, but each one's different. And the culture of companies, in my experience, are very much contingent upon what phase they're in. So, it's I have certain expectations in my more mature companies with hundreds or thousands of employees. There's a very important way to manage those people versus my early stage technology company, which now has 12 people, commercial streaming solutions, also known as Connect TV. And that culture is very different and one that's probably more similar to a, Bay Area startup.
Right. You obviously have been hiring a lot of people, both directly that work for you as well as broader in the organization. Well, what do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire?
It really depends on what I expect from them. It's definitely not a one size fits all strategy. I have, it's a very different process if we're hiring, let's just say, a food and beverage server at one of our restaurants versus a senior leader to one of our companies or an engineer for our technology business. It also depends on what resources we have. We've always relied on professional recruiters in one capacity or the other and have found them to be very helpful. But even there, we've worked with different people who maybe have a stronger focus in certain areas, whether that's, we've had certain recruitment help with companies that are just amazing in finance and IT. I don't know why those two seem to go together, but they do. Others that are more broadly focused on hospitality.
Is there a common thread, though, beyond the qualifications of the job they do?
Absolutely. I mean, look, most skills are trainable, so I think it's that I focus on the personality first and foremost, and this is based on hopefully what we can find, through their resume and through speaking to their other employers. But somebody needs to be reliable. Let's face it. I mean, it's right. if a person is not reliable, nothing else really matters. And trust me, I've had, especially in the hospitality business, plenty of people who just weren't reliable. But assuming that the person is reliable and responsible, everything else is personality. Do they have a good attitude? Are they willing to learn? Do they work well with others? Those things are really important.
Sure.
But it depends on the job. Some jobs are very technical. I have IT support staff and engineers that, in that sense, they just have to be really good at what they do. And their personality may not be as important as people I have working for me in my call center who are doing, direct sales on the phone. So I can't say it's exactly a one size fits all.
Makes good sense. Well, we're just about out of time, but we always have one last question we ask all our guests, Seth. And, what career and life advice would you give to someone who perhaps has their eyes on the corner office or maybe more importantly, wants to kind of cut an entrepreneurial path like you've got?
Well, this one isn't easy, but I have found that having a healthy work and life balance and having a wife that is my partner in life, who truly does her best to understand my businesses and often shocks me how she does, she is my confidant. That gives me an emotional balance that I believe, puts me in the right frame of mind every single day. And it's the thing I'm definitely most grateful for.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, Seth Schorr, chairman of Downtown Grand Hotel and Casino, CEO of Fifth Straight Gaming, and 2 or 3 other startups that we didn't get a chance to get into much. Well, I'm going to have to invite you back, Seth. But thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
I've really appreciated it, and I hope I have an opportunity to come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.